This May, I was passionately working on my first summer knit of this season, which was Sheltie by Wool & Beyond. I was planning on making this unique design for a very long time. I also chose a very special yarn for it, so in general I was extremely excited about this project, but unfortunately the whole process turned out to be rather frustrating and I wasn't able to put my thoughts together about it for more than a month. Only now, in the middle of July, I feel like I'm finally ready to share the story of this project and share my thoughts with you. So I hope you will enjoy this video, and I suggest we start from the very beginning. For this project I decided to use pure silk from Knitting for Olive, which is fingering weight 100% silk yarn. This was my first time trying out this type of yarn and I was rather intrigued. For the color I went for cardamom, and honestly the color was probably the first major disappointment of this project because the color I ordered was completely different from the color I got. I ordered a kind of beige color and I got brownish gray color. It was much darker, more cool toned, and in general wasn't the vibe I was going for, but it still was a pretty color, so I just decided to go for it. The original Sheltie sample was knitted using iron weight cotton on 5mm needles, which created a quite dense fabric, and I wasn't sure if I would like such a dense fabric for my summer tea, so I decided to explore other options. One option that I really liked was using 2 strands of pure silk, because on one hand it would probably still allow me to hit the gauge using 5mm needles, but on another hand the fabric would have more drape and airflow and in general would be less dense. And I was right, I was able to hit the gauge when gauge swatching. The fabric was slightly see-through and it felt like a good match and exactly what I wanted, so I was ready to cast on. The Sheltie has a top-down construction, so I started by knitting the upper back yoke. I casted on stitches for the back and the shoulder pieces, and then I was just working back and forth while doing some increases for the back, the sleeves, and also doing some shaping for the front yoke. I was very interested to see how it would feel like working with the pure silk for the very first time. I could say from the very beginning that I was super happy that I decided to use pure silk double-stranded for my very first silk project. I can't imagine working with this yarn single-stranded on 3mm needles. I probably won't enjoy this experience and I don't even wanna try, to be honest. But working with this yarn double-stranded felt pretty nice and I really enjoyed the fabric created. It had a very nice drape, it looked really pretty, I started falling in love with the color, and I also really enjoyed the cooling effect every time I was touching this fabric. I think it comes from the silk, but I just really enjoyed it. And also nowadays my cat always sits nearby while I'm knitting, patiently waiting for some cuddles. Once I was done with the first part of the yoke, it was time to do something extremely cute. This design has a very special ruching detail at the back that I really like. And it was just so easy to make. I just basically doubled the number of stitches at the back and then I continued working back and forth while still increasing for the sleeves, and I also started doing the increases for the front panels. Another special detail of this design is that when I finished working the increases for the sleeves and was ready to separate the body and the sleeves, I just had to cut the sleeves off. So I didn't have to put them on hold and then get back to them later in the process. I was basically done with the sleeves and yeah, I just cut them off. And once I was finished with the sleeves, I still had to work back and forth for a couple of more centimeters before I was able to start working on another special detail of this design: horizontal front panels. I was really looking forward to this step because only after finishing the front panels I would be able to try this piece on properly and really see how it looked and if everything was going as it's supposed to. But shortly after starting working on them, a lot of issues started to appear. First of all, apparently I made some mistakes while working on the back yoke. For example, I thought that edge stitches always meant the same thing, that you are supposed to slip the first stitch and knit the last stitch on every row of your work, but apparently it's not the case, and this pattern provides you with specific instructions on how to work edge stitches, and for some reason I just didn't notice this chapter with explanation, so I did my edge stitches in the wrong way, and then I was struggling a lot when picking up stitches for the front panels. Also, the pattern provides you with a very specific instructions on how to connect the little shoulder piece to the front yoke, and I tried following the instructions directly a couple of times, and every time I failed. My result just didn't look as nice and I was really frustrated, so I ended up leaving this part out and seaming those two beads together afterwards, which to be honest worked quite nicely and I was pretty happy with the result, but still I was just confused why I wasn't able to follow the instructions provided in the pattern. And lastly, I started getting concerned whether the front panels looked too long and huge for my upper body, but again, because this piece is so unique and the construction is like nothing I have in my wardrobe, I wasn't really able to say what would be the perfect length for my body, so I just followed the pattern instructions directly. And when I tried this piece on one hand I was like, wow, this indeed looks like something really special and I kind of like this vibe, but on another hand the front yoke was way too deep. I had my bra showing off completely and I wasn't able to imagine how I would wear this piece outside. So yeah, I still decided to also finish the neckline with the I-cord ties because I thought that maybe it would somehow fix the exposure that I was getting when wearing this piece. But then this happened. I had a very productive Monday morning and this is the result. I unraveled my sheltie. Initially, I didn't plan on unraveling everything, I just wanted to unravel the front panels and a little bit of the body so that I could make the front yoke slightly shorter, but once I unraveled that part I realized that my pickup edge was now so stretched out, and if I would pick the stitches up again the result probably wouldn't look very nice, and also I was constantly thinking about all the other little mistakes that I made, so I ended up unraveling everything just because I thought that it would be healthier for me to just start over with new motivation and with new vision for my sheltie. I reknitted the yoke exactly to the pattern, but I did shorten quite a bit the upper body to make my front panels also shorter, and then I did quite a lot of changes for the front panels, but let me first explain how the front panels are constructed according to the pattern. So first you need to pick up stitches along the sides of the yoke, and then you need to do some shaping for the neckline by gradually casting off the stitches, then you work back and forth, and at the end you do the folded edge. Once you are done with both of the front panels you have an option to sew down the bottom part and decide how low you want your split to be, and then you finish the yoke with the I-cord edge and optional ties. And what I didn't like about this front panels construction is the folded edge, because in my case the folded edge felt quite heavy and sloppy, probably because of my yarn choice, and yeah, I wanted to change that. So what I did instead, I casted off about 10 stitches at the bottom of my yokes by using Kitchener stitch, so I basically seamed them together. And for the top part of my front panels, I decided to cast the stitches off using an applied I-cord, and I connected this I-cord edge with the I-cord edge of the neckline and the ties. And I did really like the result of my modifications. I thought it looked quite nice and pretty. And fun fact, this is exactly how I envisioned the shell tee before I really looked into the pattern. I didn't expect the folded edge to be there. I was almost completely sure that the I-cord edge is alongside the whole part of the yoke. So yeah, I just basically followed my vision. And after this part was done, I just had to work in the round for the body for about 20 centimeters before I was able to cast the whole thing off and have the finished piece. I really enjoyed working in the round on this project. I think it was just a nice break from thinking about all of the instructions and modifications and stressing out about how this project would turn out and if I would like the result. And I also quite enjoyed working with pure silk double-stranded, but what I have noticed about pure silk from Knitting for Olive is that it doesn't really feel like 100% silk yarn. To me, it really feels like just a cotton yarn. It doesn't have a lot of shine, it's very splitty, and also it even peels a little bit, which is quite surprising, but I have noticed some peeling even while just working on this piece. But I think this is probably because Knitting for Olive silk is cruelty-free silk and the process of producing it is slightly different and the result is also slightly different, but I'm all for cruelty-free products and I still think that pure silk is very nice and high quality yarn. Once I reached the length that I wanted, it was time to cast off the stitches, weave in the ends, and then wash and block this piece. And I don't want to hide, but I was quite worried about it growing out a lot because, yeah, some people say that pure silks grow like crazy, and I know that when you block your swatch, it's not the same as when you block your garment. So yeah, I was extra careful when washing this piece, and also I put it on a spin cycle in my washing machine after that because it usually helps to prevent the pieces to grow a lot. And I was right, my shell tee didn't grow almost at all. Once it was dry, the length increased by maybe 1 or 2 centimeters, but for sure nothing dramatic, and I was super relieved about that. I feel like it might grow more with wear. The pure silk definitely doesn't have the elasticity of the wool and the whole garment feels a little bit heavy. I'm also absolutely obsessed about how stitches look. They are just so neat and polished. I honestly want to knit 10 more garments in pure silk double-stranded as soon as possible because this is just superior. And here is how this piece fits me. I wonder what do you think about it before I will share my own opinion and thoughts. Sometimes people surprise me with their own perspective on the things that I make. So please let me know in the comments down below if you find this piece pretty, practical, if you like the fit, if you would need something like this for yourself, or perhaps not and this is just simply not your style. If I get back to what I think about this piece, I will say it straight away, I don't like it and I will unravel it as soon as I finish this video. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out for me. I gave myself plenty of time to think about this piece, more than a month. I tried wearing it with different clothes in different situations and I just don't feel comfortable in it. I thought for the longest time that I would unravel it once again and try to reknit it for the third time, and maybe the third time would be a charm. But I don't want to do it anymore. I think I'm just not as excited about this piece anymore, and because I already knitted it more than once, I just want to knit something else. I'm still very much in love with this yarn. I already have plans on what I will use it for my other project, and I'm still a little bit disappointed about the color difference, but okay, it is what it is. And I'm still very much in love with the design. I still think that it is very special. I think maybe I will try knitting it once again, perhaps next year. I will probably use the yarn recommended in the pattern, this iron weight cotton, because I think it will work for this construction better. This is basically the story of my shell tee. If I will get in more details about what I don't like about it, there are 3 things that I want to mention. The first one is the split at the front. Even though I tried to make it less exposing, it's still pretty much exposing, and I don't feel comfortable. Whenever I wear this piece, I'm always super self-conscious about whether my bra is showing off or my breasts are showing off. I definitely cannot wear it to the office. Then the second thing are the sleeves. Because they are casted off when you split for the body and the sleeves, I find it less comfortable, because whenever I move my arms, I feel like the whole tee is moving with me, and I don't really like this feeling. But to be fair, this is my first knitted tee and I don't know how the alternative feels like, but I think maybe next time I knit this, I'll just add a couple of rows once I split for the body and the sleeves. At the same time, I kind of like this look of the super short sleeves, so I'm not sure about this yet. And the third thing is the ruching detail at the back. It's absolutely adorable, but this gathering makes the back much heavier than the front, and so the back is always pushing back, and I needed basically to correct it with my hands a lot of times, which I don't really like, because whenever I push it on the other side, the split is getting bigger and my bra is showing off even more. So this is not the perfect scenario. Still, the most problematic part is of course the front yoke and this. Yeah, I think I would be able to deal just with sleeves and the heavy ruching detail, but the front is just a no-go for me, unfortunately. And I think the reason why I have been hesitating about finishing this video and making the decision about my shell tee is because I don't really want to say anything bad about the pattern or the designer, but I still want to be honest. And the pattern is really great, it's very well written, the construction of the whole tee is so smart, and all the increases, all the little things are just so special and so cute and so pretty. And I really like the designer, Ellen, the woman behind the Wool and Beyond brand. She's so talented, all of her designs are so special. I'm absolutely in love with her. I also follow her on Instagram and she follows me back, and we have chatted a couple of times in the past, and I feel like I have a personal relationship with her. I think the only issue I really had with the whole pattern is the fact that after you split for the body and the sleeves, the pattern instructs you to knit for too many centimeters. I would probably shorten it in the pattern for most of the sizes. I think this is the only issue that makes the front split so deep. And then this modification is actually made everything worse, but it's not the pattern's fault, it's my creativity. But the way I did the split here is I knitted for few more rows at the bottom, and it made this little circle a little bit more open, so I shouldn't have done that. But again, this is not the pattern's fault. In case you're planning on making this piece, I still think that you should be aware about all of the details and how they affect the final fit, just so that you can make an informed decision and also think about potential modifications that you would like to make. But otherwise, I definitely not advising you against knitting this pattern. This is very unique design, and if you like it, go for it. And perhaps this video can just help you to make the best possible shell tee for you. Every time I finish a garment that I'm not really happy about, I feel really frustrated and I feel like it puts me off track for some time, because I always try to be so intentional and I make plans way ahead and I think really hard about what to make, which yarn to use, what modifications to make. And still, despite all of that, sometimes I just fail, and sometimes I don't get the piece I'm super happy about, and this can be frustrating. But now I think I'm over it, and I'm glad I have knitted this piece because I have tried a new construction for me, I have learned some new techniques, I have also tested my own idea and my own modification, so it has been a still very nice experience. And technically I have a new piece. I have finished it from the beginning till the end. Technically I'm not able to wear it because a couple of weeks ago I wanted once again to try it on and perhaps wear it to the office. And at some point I have noticed that the cast of edge at the body started unraveling. So now I basically have this thing at the bottom of my shell tee, and at that point I thought that it was a sign that I really need to unravel it because it started unraveling on its own. But I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about my shell tee. Let me know what do you think about the whole story, and let me know how you personally react to your failed projects. Of course, if you had any, I would like to read about that. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!